Let us help you reach your peak in retirement. It's time for Retirement Elevated with Sean Lee.
Hey everybody, welcome into Retirement Elevated. Thanks so much for checking us out here as we talk about investing, finance, and retirement with Sean P. Lee, managing partner at Elevated Retirement Group, serving the Salt Lake City area from his office in Sandy. You can check him out online at elevatemyretirement.com. That's elevatemyretirement.com. Or you can always just give a call and get yourself onto the calendar. If you have some questions, if you hear a useful nugget or two of information on the program and you'd like to talk more with Sean and the team, reach out to him at 855-50-RETIRE. That is 855-50-RETIRE. Pretty easy to remember that and jot that down. 855-50-RETIRE. Sean, buddy, what's going on? How are you?
Another day, just enjoying the weather.
Another day, and you told me you changed your view a little bit, so now you got your office view, so now you're looking at the lovely mountains.
I am. I moved from, I had everything set up in one of our inner offices, and I moved it into my office so I can actually look outside and see
how
the mountains.
How lovely it is. Whether it's snowing or raining, it's got to be pretty no matter what it's doing, even if it's 1,000,000 degrees, so...
Yeah, I mean, it's you can't beat our view.
Yeah, that's true. Very true. Let's get into this program. Let's talk about this a little bit this week. I wanted to talk about how, as humans, we tend to find justification in making excuses for about anything that we do, right? And I mean this like personally, like your wife says take out the trash and you don't do it, and then a little later on you realize that you probably needed to do it. You try to make some justification as to what you're going to say as to why you didn't take the dog was getting sick, so I took the dog outside. Whatever, right? We come up with justifications,
right?
And we do the same thing for sticking with, I think, the wrong people in our life that we're trying to use for help and things. So in this case, obviously, the wrong advisor. We'll make an excuse for why we're kind of seeing this situation or this relationship through, and these are actual statements that we've gotten through the years from different places, and they're kind of ridiculous. So I want to give you some of these and just kind of get your vantage point. If you've heard some of these types of things and what you think or what you might kind of counter propose to people when they're feeling this way. So for example, you might hear someone say something like, well, my portfolio hasn't done very well over the last couple of years, even though it should have, but the person's a really nice guy, and so I just haven't wanted to rock the boat and make any changes because it's done okay, just not great.
Right. I mean, this is hard. You look at it and you say, I've been with this individual. I've worked with this individual for, 5, 10, 15, 20 years.
Whatever it is.
He's become my friend, right?
Right.
He takes me golfing, and he takes my wife and I to dinner or whatever it may be, or we really enjoy his Christmas party and night out at the movies or whatever. But when you start to look at it, I mean, there's really an obligation. I mean, as an individual investor personally, right, and you have an obligation to do what's in the best interest of your plan. And fortunately or unfortunately, you tend to graduate from your advisor, or you could potentially graduate from the advisor that you have to an advisor that's going to get you to where you want to go. And what I mean by that is, when you start to look at your finances more holistically, and you start to look and say, okay, I'm on the cusp of retirement. I really need to make some decisions. I need to have somebody help me navigate from accumulating and saving and pumping money into my retirement accounts to withdrawing it. You need to take a hard look at who you're working with and then determine, are they doing and building the plan that's going to allow me confidently, not just to get from A to B, but to confidently get from my working years into retirement and then carry me through the end of life? And I think a lot of that comes with clarity, and that clarity can only come when you have all the data that you need and you have a complete, we'll call it 5-pronged plan put in place.
Okay. All right. So if we're talking about some excuses, that's kind of one that we'll come up with, and that's some good response there on how we can kind of combat that. What about this one, Sean? I don't usually understand a lot of what my advisor is saying. Honestly, I feel a little confused after we meet, but it's just that I know money's not my thing. And again, they're a nice person and we get along well. That just seems odd to me. Like, you want to understand what they're saying, right? It's like going to the doctor and the doctor saying you got something really complicated, but they typically will break it down in a way you can understand that.
Right. I want to know what the risks, the reward, the potential outcomes are. And that happens a lot in our industry. It's all this financial jargon. It's alpha, beta, standard deviation, and all this stuff that may or may not have a huge effect on your plan. And when it comes to building a plan, I mean, I love to tell people that we like to build plans that are what we call elegantly simple, which means that it's easy to follow. You can maintain it, you can understand it, and if something were to happen to me tomorrow, then the plan's going to continue on. And then on top of that, let's build an allocation that's going to work. It follows what your tolerance is for fluctuation in your assets, but it's boring. We want to build boring portfolios that follow your plan, rather than get super fancy and create a bunch of stuff that you don't necessarily understand.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think the idea is, hopefully most people realize that their financial plan is not going to be sexy, right? It's not supposed to be. It's supposed to be predictable and stable and steady and all those good kinds of things. So I think that's probably a good mantra to take from it. All right, Sean, here's another good one for you. We don't get together very often for reviews, actually hardly ever, and I rarely get my phone calls returned. I know they're busy because the firm's always moving and going and things like that, but he serviced my dad for years, so I assume that they're taking care of me because I'm a generational client.
The needs of the dad were probably much different than the needs of the child, right? I mean, there's...
But you still should be getting your phone calls returned.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so when you start to look at having a proactive service plan rather than a reactive one, I mean, usually what happens in our industry is, hey, oh my gosh, the market's corrected. And I've got an example. I was speaking with an advisor friend of mine. We were at the Real game, and it was when the market's corrected 800 points.
Right.
And he's like, have your phones been going crazy all day? I said, no. I said, we didn't get one call.
Right.
He goes, what? He goes, I've been on the phone for the last hour and a half after work, just talking to the families that we represent. What did you do? I said, well, there's a couple of things. One, we're very proactive when it comes to setting reviews. We schedule all of our reviews, if possible, in advance for the year for each individual family that we work with. So it's almost like you go to your dentist, you pre-schedule out. We try to do the same thing. Now, life happens, I get it, but at least we've got something put in place. And then the flip side of that, there's a lot of concern when the markets become uneasy. We obviously don't get calls as the markets are running positively, but one thing that happened over the last couple of weeks alone, we had a 750 point drop. We had an 800 point drop in one day. So what did we do as a firm? We reached out. Our chief investment officer gave a synopsis of the day, and we sent that out to all of our clients so they had an idea of what was happening, why it was happening, and what they should expect. That creates some clarity. And it brings a little bit of comfort that, hey, you know what? My team understands what my needs are. They're looking out for me. And yeah, stuff like this is going to happen.
Yeah, and I think that's probably a good point because things are going to happen. But if you've got that plan in place and you have some, you said it earlier, you said confidence. If you've got some confidence in the plan, then you're not going to necessarily have those freak out moments when the market does what the market's going to do, right? I mean, it's going to go up. It's going to go down. It's going to do these things. And so having that plan in place is going to help you feel a little bit more easy, which is evident by the fact that your phone's not blowing up when this is going on. All right, well, I think we got time for one more here. We might hear something like, they don't really specialize in retirement planning, but I've been with them, to your point earlier, Sean, for so long, I'm just going to go ahead and stick with them. Well, that sounds to me like more of an accumulation person, right?
I mean, when you first get into this industry, you tend to become a general practitioner and you work with whoever you can.
Right.
There's that old adage, if they can fog a mirror, then you work with them when you're first starting out. and as you progress in your practice and as you progress and you learn more, you then start to, I think, specialize. We've used the doctor analogy a lot, but let's go to sports. And I'm a big baseball guy, and there's a reason why in Major League Baseball, when you look at the coaching staff on a Major League Baseball team, guys that have played baseball for 30 plus years of their life, they're the peak athletes, that there's a manager, there's a bench coach who supports the manager, but then they have a hitting coach, a pitching coach, a bullpen coach, an assistant hitting coach, an assistant pitching coach.
Right.
They've got coaches that are all there to do specific things. Now, the hitting coach, he doesn't get in the way of the pitching coach because he knows the pitching coach does his job. He's there to work with the pitchers, And then you've got the first base coach, who in a lot of cases is an ex-infielder, works with the infielders. Third base coach, potentially an ex-outfielder, works with the outfielders, and so on. But they all have their specialty. So when it comes to financial planning and working with an advisor, if I'm in a phase of my life where I need to have a pitching coach and I'm working with a hitting coach, that doesn't work out. I need to find the right advisor in my phase of life that has the expertise and the abilities to work with me and build me a clearly defined income plan to get me to that next phase.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I mean, say football, baseball, whatever it is that you're working with, you've got the offensive coordinator versus the defensive coordinator. They typically don't try to mess with each other's plans and things of that nature. So yeah, that's a good way of looking at it. So basically, take Coach Sean's comments here and take a look at it. You coach your kids team, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So Coach Sean, see, there you go. I'm not making that up. Take Coach Sean's advice and reach out. Give him a call. If you got some questions or concerns, reach out to him at 855-50-RETIRE. That's 855-50-RETIRE to talk with Sean Lee, managing partner at Elevated Retirement Group, serving the Salt Lake City area. They got an office in Sandy as well as St. George. That's all open and running now, right?
It is.
There you go.
So finally furnished. We're ready to go.
There you go. So give them a call. Reach out to them. Find them online at retirementelevatedpodcast.com. If you want to check that out at the podcast, retirementelevatedpodcast.com. Or you can also check the team out at elevatemyretirement.com. That is the business site there, elevatemyretirement.com. All right, that's going to do it for this week here on the program. So we will catch you next time here on Retirement Elevated.
Investment advisory services offered through Elevated Capital Advisors, LLC, and SEC registered